Hello everyone, it's Ali Sugars here, and I am currently on 19 on Green, the community centre in Brompton. I'm doing some preparation ready for our Pamper Day in May this year. So I thought that while I'm here, I'll give you a little bit of a look around at the centre, and let's get excited about this year's event, shall we? Let's go. So I am currently standing in the main area of 19 on Green, and this is where a lot of our exhibitors will be holding their stalls. So I just want to show you around quickly. So as you can see behind me, we have a beautiful, beautiful, fully functioning kitchen. And where is it? There it is, oh, big fancy fridge there. Let me just turn the camera around and show you this absolutely gorgeous area. So as I said, this is where we will be having a lot of our exhibitors showcase their goods and their services, and then we can even come out the door here. Here we go, and we have also this gorgeous outdoor area where people will be able to hang out, they'll be able to enjoy their cuppas. Depending on how many exhibitors we have, we can overflow and put some of them out here as well. So very, very exciting. Absolutely a picturesque spot here at 19 on Green.
Shelley!
Hello, how are you? I was just enjoying my cup of tea.
Hello.
Hi, girls.
Good. What's going on?
Oh, well, I'm excited. We're about to start another fantastic show. Welcome to the Healing Through Love show. We're here to increase awareness within the community about providing family and domestic violence survivors with a soft place to land. And we're here to also increase information in and around the families for that area.
Yeah, and we have many local businesses and who share their resources for the day at our Pamper Days, and we have guests who come on and their businesses. They promote themselves here as well.
Excellent.
That's right. And every week on the Healing Through Love show, we interview different experts and survivors who share their personal stories and as well as some advice on what they have experienced and how they can help those survivors. So no matter where you are on your journey. So we're here a little bit later, all about our Pamper Day. But for now on, we're going to hand it over to Charlene.
Thanks, girls. It's always good to see you. I'm going to introduce our fabulous guest today, Beck Thompson. She's an award-winning relationship coach, #1 international best-selling author, and owner and founder of Relationship Circle. She works with single people and couples to help them uncover the real issues and find strategies to reconnect and rebuild their relationship resilience. She can help you find your way to the more loving, compassionate relationships with yourself and your partner, and remains true to life's storms. Well, I've got to find out more about that. Beck has a history of working with women and families in a space of domestic and family violence, providing counselling and housing options. She's passionate about women understanding and owning their self-worth so that they can change their future. Without any more ado, hi, Beck, how are you?
I'm amazing, thank you. How are you?
Magnificently magnificent. We're in the right space then, aren't we?
Yes.
Now, Beck, I know that introduction covered off a little bit, but I'd like to know a little bit more about the history of you and how did you get to be a relationship coach?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career, I suppose, as a social worker, and I worked for many, many years in the space of domestic and family violence, doing trauma therapy with survivors and people going through family and domestic violence, and also in homelessness space, so in organising housing for those who were experiencing family and domestic violence. And then I had a baby and life kind of changed for me. And I was already in coaching prior to that. And I just I took some time out from coaching because it was very broad for me, and I had to have a think about what I really enjoyed about coaching. And it was really the ones where I had couples and where I was working with people through relationship issues. And I also love working with groups of women. There's something super empowering about working with women as a group, and the support and guidance they give each other. So then I chose to start the relationship circle and went down that path.
Oh, fantastic. So you work with men and women individually as well as in groups?
Yeah, I do. Generally, I tend to work with more women singly than men. I think probably because of my branding and the way that I market myself, but I absolutely do work with men as well.
So what do you think the number one challenge is for your clients? Like, are they coming to you because they're in a relationship, or are they coming to you because they're not in a relationship?
Yeah, it's probably 50-50 at the moment, I think. And if they're in a relationship, generally the issues are around, they're just kind of not on the same path. So it's generally around communicating. Whether they can acknowledge that or not is another story. But it's generally around trying to get them on the same path together. And working with single women, generally, it's about getting them to a good space where they can go into a relationship and know that they're going to be okay in that next relationship.
With the couples, I have to ask, a little off topic, do you find that life purpose comes into the mix of the challenges in relationship?
Yeah, definitely. I always do work with people on their values, and if you've either got values that align, or you've got values that don't align. And if you've got values that don't align, and they're kind of, I call them sometimes unsolvable values. So if you've got values where the purpose perhaps is, and your main value is that you really love family and you want a family, and the other person doesn't, then that generally is not going to work out in a relationship. But if you've got someone whose values, for example, that communication is really high on their values, and the other person is, I don't know, hard work or something, it doesn't mean they're not the same values, but they can align together. So yeah, massively. Purpose is huge because
Purpose,
that's
yeah.
what you do in life.
And do you not find that now, for women particularly, that, you know, they're purpose driven and yet their purpose has changed somewhat? You know, if you have a look at it on a socioeconomic scale and also just global, that the power has shifted a little bit. Do you find that that's a bit of a challenge for couples and relationships?
Yeah, sometimes I think that society has changed some ways. I think it's got a long way to go. And you'll find that some men are on board with that change and some are still stuck behind. And I suppose same with women. Sometimes it's hard. There's also this pressure to achieve more and be more and do more, but then often the woman takes on the emotional baggage or the emotional labor of the family, and the man just works and comes home and they've done their job. And without even, I've got some friends and some couples where they're in really high emotionally intelligent couples and they've got great communication, and it's still the woman still bears that emotional labor that exists within a relationship. So I think it's tough on a woman sometimes to go forward with what's happening in society, but also carry everything along with her.
Yeah, patterns and beliefs and all of those things wrapped up. Only just this morning I heard a man who should know better, saying, you know, I get home and dinner's not cooked. And I'm like, I said nothing. And it's just, it's interesting how it's taking a long time for this to change. A long time and not, I suppose, because it's been the other way for a really, really long time. And I suppose in the scheme of our life, it seems like it's forever, but in the scheme of human history, this change has been a long time coming. And do you think that that this relationship challenge that we're having, and you said that communication is one of the biggest challenges, and then we've got values and, you know, what purpose that you serve and what direction you're heading towards. How do you define like the communication challenge in the space with husbands and wives and in relationships? What do you think is the key issue in communication?
There's so many. There could be like a whole book written on this, but it really quite often is that they're saying the same thing, but they're just not hearing each other because there's that sometimes this inability, I'm constantly getting couples to try and see life through their partner's eyes, and not just know that they're right all the time, because it doesn't help anyone. If they're constantly trying to be right all the time, they're not going to get anywhere. So I suppose my biggest challenge with couples is helping them see, how does that other person interpret what's happened, and how can I see life through their eyes? And maybe they could be right. Like, let's just be curious about it. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be wrong if they're right. And my favorite saying is, it's not us against each other, it's us against the problem. So if we can face whatever's happening head on as a couple, rather than trying to blame the other person, that kind of helps them. And it's also, that masculine and feminine is huge.
Yeah, so a bit of active listening wouldn't go astray, do you think?
Totally. Very much so.
And a bit of role reversal.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say active listening, because I had a couple yesterday and I ended on saying, I want you to have a conversation. It just needs to go for half an hour, and I need the focus to be that you listen to understand rather than listen to reply. So I don't want you to listen and then think, what am I going to say next? How do I get my rebuttal in? How can I be right? I want you, your sole purpose is to listen, to think, what are they saying? How can I understand what they're saying?
It's so true. It's so true. So what do you think is the number one challenge facing, men and women today in relationships? Yes, you've said communication, but outside of the communication, what do you think the number one challenge is?
I think the number one challenge is probably balancing where society thinks men and women should be, and where a couple thinks they should be as a couple. Because there's such, I suppose, mixed views as to what a relationship should look like, or how someone should treat someone. And often people are so worried about what everyone else thinks about their relationship, rather than how they feel in the relationship.
Yeah. So having that integrity at home and outside of the home, and let's face it, it's not just men and women, it's women and women and men, and it's all sorts of shades of everything in between. It's humans and humans. Yeah. And so it's a completely different world that we live in, and people cast aspersions for no other reason than you just don't dress the same as them. So that puts additional challenges on any type of relationship.
Yeah. It's interesting, because I see it in the dating space a bit as well. I have women that be like, I really don't like that plaid shirt he was wearing. I'm like, is that relevant to when you date? Like, that's not a reason to just not to get rid of him and just put him to the side.
Well, on that topic, what do you think of emotional intelligence, and how that plays a part in couples and in relationships?
It's everything. It's absolutely everything, because if you can be aware of your emotions and the triggers that you have and how those play out in your relationship, you can learn not to take things personally. Things don't escalate as high, because if you can see that someone's, they've triggered me from what they've said, I need to step away and have some time apart, rather than being like, this is why you've triggered me and I'm going to have a go back at you, and it just escalates and escalates and escalates. It's massive. And you can also understand, or something is happening for me right now. I can feel something's happening in my body. I don't feel okay. This is what it is. Just the understanding of it. And the most beautiful thing about emotional intelligence is that it can be learned and it can be grown over time, and you're not born with it. So, this is a skill that everyone can learn if you're open to learning and growing.
Yeah. So on that, then, moving forward with emotional intelligence, coming from a DV space, how do we work on that level of emotional intelligence when we're so still fixing ourselves up so that we can move forward, and then we think we're ready to start dating, and then we date the same creature that we dated before that did damage, and we're repeating the cycle? What tips would you give us in that area so that we can move forward and have a different result?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I talk to women and I either say, please don't date, please have some space away from dating so we can work on you, or I say, it sounds like you're ready, let's jump into it, because sometimes a relationship is such a perfect opportunity for those mirrors to show up and for you to work through stuff. But if people are still in a stage where they're dating the same person dressed in different clothes sometimes, I always say, let's work on yourself. So self-love is really, really important, and understanding and knowing your worth is massively linked to self-love. So I often teach my clients, there's the 5 love languages by Gary Chapman, and online there's a quiz you can do to his 5 love languages. But if you relate it to yourself and what is your self-love language, how could you give back love to yourself? And then the biggest thing in that is, how can you receive it? Because you might not be open to receiving that love anymore. And particularly, it's so important for you to be able to receive your own love. I often talk to clients about a self-love tank. And if you have to fill up your car with petrol, or if you've got an electric car, you have to charge the car. And we do that. We take it to the mechanic and we look after it. And if we didn't fill it up with petrol, it wouldn't run. Yet so often we let our own self-love tank get run down because we put ourselves last, particularly women and particularly mothers. And so it's so important to know what it is that you can do to fill your own self-love tank up so that it is constantly full. Because if you don't, you then seek that love from others. You try and get that love, that deficit, to be filled by others, and it doesn't work. It needs to be filled by yourself.
So if I understand what you're saying, then at the foundational level for this healing is a really thick foundation of self-worth.
Yeah, I think so. Because otherwise you then end up going into a relationship and you attract someone, or you're with someone because you believe that you're worthy of something. And so underneath all of us, we've got the beliefs of who we think we are and what we deserve. And if your belief underlying all that is that, I'm no good, I don't deserve to be treated very well, then someone's going to come along and match that. And you're only getting kind of what you think you're worthy of. It's not true, but it's a belief that you've made up along the way that you think is the truth.
Yeah, so alignment, I love it. So could we talk about, just dive a little deeper in the area of self-worth, and maybe share with us some tools and techniques so that we can, increase our level of self-worth and then have that showing outwardly so that we then, with alignment, attract the right type of partner?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely the self-love languages. So looking to see what your self-love language is, and then see how you can give, if you just Google self-love language, you'll see there's like heaps of kind of diagrams made up, and you can pinpoint kind of things that you could do for yourself. And the 5 love languages are acts of service, gifts, physical touch, quality time, and words of affirmation. So you'll see which one one will rank higher than the other. There might be some that are kind of equal, but they'll rank higher than the other. And so then give yourself love in that way, and just make sure you're making that a consistent practice of yours of prioritizing it. The other thing is to notice how you talk to yourself or about yourself. So I hear clients all the time saying, "Oh, I had a client the other day, she got on a Zoom call and she's like, so sorry, I'm such an idiot. I couldn't get it to work, blah, blah, blah." And so that was just such a sign of how she spoke to herself, and the indication of self-worth. And often we don't hear it until we kind of say it out loud. So just all that's important is to raise the awareness of how you're talking to yourself, and then you can change it. But if you're not aware of it, you can't change it. So I tell clients to either keep like a note in their phone, or like write it down, however you work best, just to kind of understand the way that you speak to yourself and about yourself to others. And sometimes it's helpful to ask a friend to pick you up on those kind of tips when you do it, because they notice it more than you do.
Yeah.
And the last one I think would be to understand that, if you've been in family and domestic violence relationship, the road is rocky out of there, and healing is not linear in any sense. And quite often the relationships are still entangled for a long time, and often life, if you've got kids or property or other things that entangle you together. So know that any emotion that comes up for you, that emotion is valid, and it's okay you have to go. I've got a little boy, so I'm going to use an analogy, a song that relates, because that song, you can't go over it, you have to go through it. That's emotions. You have to go through the emotions, because if you avoid them, they're just going to pop back up at some other time. So as long as it's safe for you to explore those emotions and to just be with them, you don't have to do anything else but just to fully feel it and know what it feels like in your body, then you'll get through those emotions. And I suppose know that there's nothing wrong, and there's no positive or negative emotions. They're just emotions. So happiness is no more valid than sadness or anger, or whatever you feel is okay. And it's okay to let it come up and be there.
Excellent. So in summary, then it's you need to know your own love languages so that you can dive deep in feeding yourself back that particular love language. So, and then maybe sharing that with your partner if you have a partner as well. So
Yeah,
they
yeah,
know
absolutely.
to do your best. And then watching your language. So be aware of that. Maybe get help from your friends to get you back on track. And then the last one there is to have awareness and
Yeah, and just don't attach that. So often when we get out of these family and domestic violence relationship, there's a lot of shame and guilt attached to how we feel around things, and we've been taught to think that things are wrong or how we do things is wrong and it's not okay. And so I just want you to know that any emotion that comes up for you is valid and it's good and it's perfect and it's what needs to be there. And I suppose just don't avoid it.
right. So just have all of those emotions wash over you. Don't necessarily need to have them attached to you. Just wash over you. Go
Yes.
through the sensation so that you can have the learnings from those. Pushing them
Yes.
away or pushing them down is not going to work for you. But having them
Yep.
wash through you so that you can experience that. Let's face it, energy is just, emotions are just energy in motion. Just it's like standing on the beach with your feet in the water. Just let it wash over you.
Yeah,
And
yeah, absolutely.
learn from that. Yeah, I love it, love it, love it. So that's
Yeah.
3 great tips to help people move forward. I'd love to know a little bit more for the people that are listening. How can they work more with you?
Yeah. So I work in a few different capacities. So I work in one-on-one coaching, meaning that it'd be like this. So I work via Zoom. And so I have people for one-on-one, either 90 or 60 minutes with me, and we work through whatever is going on, either as a couple or as a single person. And I just meet you where you're at. So whatever's occurring for you, we just work through that in our sessions. And the other way is I've got 2 group programs. So one is for single women, and that's called Up Level Love. And so that is about getting women back into the dating world. And it really often starts with, there's a huge piece on self-worth in there, actually. Self-worth, then dating, then relationships, because I want you, once you get into the relationship, to actually have a successful relationship and to know what's okay and not okay. And I find that having that support along the way, like dating is such a minefield nowadays. So having that support along the way is really helpful. And my other course is called Reignite the Spark, and that's for couples that have been together a long time, or maybe not even a long time, but have kind of lost that love and spark between themselves.
Wow, that's fantastic. Now I understand that you've got something coming up soon. I think, is it next week or the week after?
Yeah, next week. Yeah. So I'm running a Soulmate Attraction Bootcamp webinar. So basically it is about understanding who you want to bring into your life next, what is been holding you back from bringing that into your life, and then how we can make that a reality. So I'm just going to walk people through those 3 steps about how to bring into your life what you want in terms of a relationship.
Yeah, wow. So that's huge. That's fantastic. I was going to ask you a little bit more in and around the homeless. I know that we're here today to talk about domestic violence, but can you see any correlation between the two? I'm looking at the stats in and around women in their 50s and the number of women in their 50s that have now become homeless. And I'm wondering, do you, as a practitioner, believe that there's any correlation between family and domestic violence and women finding themselves in their 50s homeless?
Yeah, massively. It was actually a huge demographic that I used to work with. And we'd have grants specifically for that age group because we noticed the statistics coming out around it. And actually, even it's interesting because it's 50 and even older. I had a woman once who was 80 and had just left her partner because of domestic and family violence. And that was the first time ever that she's been homeless. And so I think, yeah, there's a massive correlation, and it's really, like, it's tough to be homeless at any age, but to be 50 years or older and to have never experienced homelessness, it's a rough world out there in the homelessness world. And
yeah,
it's a really tough space to be in. And there's also a lot of pressure from society about you should just stay. And it's messy and rough.
So any tips and techniques that you could share with us just in and around women who are finding themselves in that challenge right now that you could share that you think that could make a big impact on them?
I think, like, really holding out the hope that things are going to get better, because I've seen it in my lifetime, and it might be really hard for you to know that right now, or know that things are going to get better and things are going to improve for you. But this is like a rebirth of your life in a way. Like there's, you know, you can either, I've seen people either sink in this time or they swim and they rise, and this can be massive opportunities that come out of it. But I get that it's tough, and I get that you could be right in the middle of the swamp right now. So just hold on to the hope that things can get better, and reach out for help, because there is help there. It isn't always best or most amazing help, but there are services and people out there who want to support you and help.
Yes.
Yeah.
So where do they start? Like, you know, what do they do? How do you begin a journey like that where you find yourself homeless? Do you ask friends? Is there a hotline they can ring? Like what
Yeah.
can they do to move forward?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the demographic, you'll find that a lot of women that are in their 50s that are homeless end up at couch surfing, so they do call friends. But there are services in each state. There is a homelessness line that you can call to get accommodation. And I'd really emphasize with them that this is your first time being homeless, because thankfully now in some states, there's some services set up for the over 50s, and you can get into more permanent housing quicker. But it doesn't happen everywhere. And also, I totally understand that we are Australia-wide, and there's rural and regional areas that is a whole other story compared to cities. So, and resources are very limited there as well. There's the 1-800-RESPECT number. That's the line I used to do telephone counselling for. And so even if you speak to them and you first get a triage worker, that you'll talk to a triage counsellor, they could point you to your state homelessness service. So that is sometimes the easier path to go to kind of get to your state-based service. The state-based services say they do counselling, but they're often very resource limited. So I know in New South Wales, the DV line there's only 10 staff that work there. It's tiny, whereas 1-800-RESPECT is huge. So if you're wanting counselling or therapy, I'd be going to 1-800-RESPECT over your state-based domestic and family violence service if you're doing telephone counselling. That is.
Yeah, wow. So it's an easy number to remember, 1-800-RESPECT, guys.
Yeah.
Not complicated, you can spell the word.
Yep. And my other tip with that is that if you want some real specialist trauma counselling, because you'll speak to two workers, you'll speak to the triage worker initially. So say to them, I want to be put through to the specialist trauma worker, and you'll get patched through to that counsellor, because they have unlimited time they can talk to you, whereas the 1-800-RESPECT people can only talk to you for about 20 minutes or so.
Excellent. Wow. Thank you so much, Beck. It's been
You're
an
welcome.
amazing 30 minutes. Why we could
Gone
just
very quickly.
just talk. Can't we just talk?
Yeah.
I can't wait to see you in the flesh. I know we're in Adelaide, but I know it won't be long and we'll all be in the same space.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for your webinar that's coming up next week. And we're going to share the details. Rose would have done that either in the body of the text for today's show, or we'll put it as a comment underneath. And if you've missed us today, that's okay. You can watch the rerun through our YouTube, and we will post that up everywhere. Beck, it's been a privilege and a pleasure to share this space with you and talk about something that's both dear to both of our hearts, and that is making a difference and creating a soft place to land for women who are survivors of family and domestic violence. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Beck. It was such a great opportunity to speak to Beck today, and we've got our two amazing assistants jumping back on because we want to talk with you guys about our Pamper Day. Hi, Rose. How are you? And Rose is just grabbing Ali. Hi, Ali. How are you? Wasn't Beck fabulous?
Absolutely. Oh, my God. I learned so much from her, especially about self-worth and self-talk.
I love it. I can talk to her all day. So, hey, Ali, could you have a chat with us about our upcoming event?
Sure. So, as you all know, Healing Through Love, what we do is we hold annual Pamp Day events. We have one for 2021. It's very exciting. It's coming up on Saturday, the 22nd of May, and it will be being held at 19 on Green at Brompton from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. So we're all very excited that this is going ahead this year. Plans are well underway, and it's going to be a fantastic day. What do you reckon, girls?
Ooh. Absolutely. I'm sorry that I won't be there, but yeah, I'll be there in spirit anyway.
Oh, you never know. It could fly you over. You don't know.
You never know.
I'll just get on my broomstick. And
That's hilarious, guys. You should actually see the before show. We should actually do a before show of us and our each other. It's very entertaining, just saying. So if you're listening today and you are a survivor yourself, or if you have a family or a friend who is in a challenge and they're going through this right now, or if this was you in the past and you're out the other side, please come along and join us. We'd love to pamper you and show you a beautiful experience. Everything is free for survivors, and you get a whole variety of fun and exciting things to do. If you're listening today and domestic violence and family violence has touched you and or your family, and you want to pay it forward and make a difference, then join us as an exhibitor. It's a really good opportunity to make a difference. Did you know every time you do something loving for somebody else, it increases your serotonin and that of the people that are watching? So it gives you your own happy feel-good drugs just by making a difference to other people. I love it. And we've got that coming up very soon on the 22nd. So lean in, speak to us on our Facebook page. Rose, what's the best way for people to reach out to us?
They can reach out to us on our email, which is htladelaide@gmail.com, and just put Pamper Day in the subject line, and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can, and I'll send you the forms to fill out. It's only $20 a table, guys. It's not expensive. I mean, it's a 1.8 meter table, so if you go somewhere else, it's going to cost you a lot more. And $20 will help Healing Through Love hold future Pamper Days, because we're self-funded. We don't get any government funding, and we just rely on donations from others to bring these events to survivors.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today. That's all for us at Healing Through Love. Join us next week at the same time for the Healing Through Love show. Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.